We just finished up an interview with Massud Peshkian, who is the president of Iran, the 70-year-old heart surgeon who leads the country we were just at war with about a week and a half ago. We know we'll be criticized for doing this interview. Why did we do it anyway? Well, we did it because we were just at war with Iran 10 days ago and maybe again. And so our view, which has remained consistent over time, is that American citizens have the constitutional right and the God-given right to all the information they can gather about matters that affect them. If their country is doing something with their money in their name, they have a right, an absolute right, to know as much about it as they can. And that would include hearing from the people they're fighting. Now, can you believe everything you hear from the president of Iran? Probably not. But that's not the point. The point is you should be able to decide for yourself whether you believe it or not.
This is my video update on this Sunday afternoon, July the 6th, coming to you from Belgrade, Serbia. Let's talk about some news, and let's start things off with the New York Times podcast interview of NATO CEO, Who's Your Daddy, Mark Rutte. And he was being interviewed by New York Times reporter slash podcaster, because having a podcast is really cool and trendy nowadays. Lulu, I believe is her name. I think that's her name. Anyway, she has a podcast. She had Mark Rutte on her podcast. And what a freaking bizarre and weird interview this was. Mark Rutte is one weird guy, man. How did the Netherlands ever survive? Mark Rutte, I don't know, but he is one strange cookie. NATO CEO Mark Rutte. What did Rutte say in this interview? Well, he kissed a lot of Trump butt. If you thought that he was kissing up to Trump during the NATO summit from last week, when he mentioned the word daddy and Trump, if you thought that was kissing up, well, just watch the interview with the New York Times. He praises Trump in a big way. He glorifies Trump. He's very, very complimentary of the U.S. president. He gives Trump all the credit for all the money that is going to be poured into NATO. He gives Trump all the credit for the 5% target spending in 2035. He gives Trump all the credit for that. And basically it was Rutte praising and glorifying his number one customer, right? He is the CEO of NATO, and I guess if you're the United States and you account for 80% of NATO's grift, 80% of NATO's revenue, I guess your job is to kiss up to the United States, and that is what Rutte did in this interview. It got so bad that the reporter, the podcaster, actually asked Rutte about his kissing up to Trump, and said that many people believe that you're praising Trump so much, you're giving Trump so much praise, that we should just call NATO the North Atlantic Trump organization. And Rutte was fine with that. He's like, yeah, all right. He's like, look, all praise goes to Trump, he said. All praise and all glory goes to U.S. President Trump. Actually, the title of the article, which is accompanying this podcast, is The Interview. The head of NATO thinks President Trump deserves all the praise. So that's the actual New York Times article of this podcast interview. Trump deserves all the praise. The North Atlantic Trump Organization kind of makes sense, actually. Why not? You know, Trump charges to use the Trump name, right? He charges a fee to actually brand with the name Trump. So maybe Trump should invoice NATO for that. Anyway, what else did Rutte say? He was asked about Lavrov and a statement that Lavrov made the other day, where Lavrov said that NATO member states actually committing 5% of their GDP to the alliance would bankrupt the NATO member states that actually did this. And the reporter, to her credit, she asked Rutte to comment on this statement from Lavrov. And what was Rutte's response? His response was to go with Lavrov. Lavrov has been foreign minister for as long as Jesus Christ was, from the time when Jesus Christ was born. Remember that line that he said last week in the Fox interview? Yeah, he threw that line out there again. He likes that line. The scriptwriters think this is a clever line. And when Rutte was delivering the line about Lavrov has been foreign minister of Russia from the time of Jesus Christ's birth, Rutte thinks this is a clever line because he's smiling as he delivers this scripted line. Someone should pull him aside and say, yeah, that's a pretty stupid thing to say, but no one's pulling him aside to say that this whole Lavrov Jesus Christ thing is stupid. They're actually running with it again. Oh boy, but you know the point about the question, the important thing to take away from the question is that Rutte didn't answer the question or the comment from Lavrov, and the reporter, to her detriment, to her credit for asking the question, but to her detriment for not following up and not pressing Rutte, she didn't tell Rutte, well, okay, Lavrov has been foreign minister since the times of Christ, but what do you think about the 5% spending bankrupting NATO member states? Isn't that true? That's what I would have done if I was interviewing Rutte. I would have said, okay, who's your daddy, Rutte? That's fine. He said that he's known Lavrov for a long time. He said that as well. He said, I've known Sergei Lavrov for a long time, right? And he's been foreign minister since when Jesus Christ was born. But I would have said, okay, Rutte, but I understand your comment about Lavrov. He's been foreign minister for many years, probably because he's doing a good job. But anyway, would you mind addressing the claim that he makes, which is that if NATO member states actually try to spend 5% of their GDP, that they would be bankrupt? What say you? He can't answer that question because he knows that NATO member states that actually decide to spend 5% of their GDP on NATO will become bankrupt. Either they will go bankrupt or the governments will be overthrown. Right? Snap elections, voted out, whatever. Call it whatever you want. Because the only way that a country could possibly get to 5% of its GDP going to the military, especially when you're talking about NATO member states, which are all broken, bankrupt, and in debt, would be for them to take whatever money there is left away from social services, from pensions and stuff like that, healthcare, education, and to funnel it into weapons for NATO. He knows that that's the answer that he would have to give if he was actually addressing Lavrov's claim, but he doesn't want to say anything. Instead, he just prefers to make these dumb comments about Lavrov. These comments, which are just, not only are they stupid and silly, but it's actually a little bit offensive to Christians, isn't it? Right? But anyway, not that Rutte cares about Christianity, the NATO CEO. Anyway, he was also asked about China and Taiwan, and Rutte, he entered fantasy land in this response. He said that NATO has to continue to spend money. The NATO members need to continue to spend money on defense because it's not only Russia that they have to defend against, but it's also China, because he claims that China is going to invade Taiwan. And then he entered fantasy world. And he said that what's going to happen is that Xi Jinping is going to call Putin once China decides to invade Taiwan. And let me just read you his quote, actually. Let me just read you what he said. He said that Xi Jinping, if Xi Jinping attacked Taiwan, he would first make sure to call his junior partner in all of this, Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin, who lives in Moscow, and say to him, hey, Vladimir, I'm going to do this, and I need you to keep them busy in Europe by attacking NATO territory. This is the kind of stuff that runs through Rutte's head. This type of nonsense. He's actually like role-playing a call between Xi Jinping and Putin. He's imagining a call between Xi Jinping and Putin, where the Chinese leader tells Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin. He makes sure to say Putin's full name so he can be very sophisticated and smart. So Rutte makes sure to say all of the full name of Putin. And he also calls Russia a junior partner because he wants to take a jab at Russia, right? The junior partner. And he says that the plan that Russia and China have is that as China invades Taiwan, Russia is going to attack NATO to keep NATO busy. Oh my God. This is the leader of NATO, the CEO of NATO, everybody. Oh my God. It is a confession, though, from Rutte. I was thinking about this statement from Rutte. I'm thinking, how does this stuff get into his head? Does he really have that good of an imagination? That crazy of an imagination? Really, Rutte doesn't strike me as the imaginative type of personality. So you know what I think happened here? And this is just a guess on my end. I think that he's just, he's projecting, I guess would be the word, or twisting around what happened in 2021 as the collective West, the United States, NATO, and EU were provoking a conflict with Russia. I bet you the conversation in 2021 between Blinken, Newland, Biden, and Stoltenberg and Ursula was probably something along the lines of, look, we're going to get a conflict with Russia. We'll probably use Ukraine to poke the bear. And when Russia bites, then we'll put these big sanctions on Russia, sink the Russian economy, get regime change, balkanize Russia, and then we have a direct line to China. So we'll take Russia off the chessboard, we'll get Russia out of the way, we'll break it up, and then we have a straight shot at going after China. I think this statement from Rutte to the New York Times was a type of confession in a way. He twisted around what actually happened in 2021, in my opinion, the discussions that were taking place before the special military operation and what the neocons and the Biden administration and Europe were coming up with, what they were about to launch towards Russia so they could ultimately get to China. And he's taking what happened then and he's twisting it around to what could happen in the future with China and Taiwan, and how Russia is going to be told by Xi Jinping to attack NATO so that NATO's busy and China can take over Taiwan. Right? That's crazy stuff, man, coming from Rutte. But I think there is some truth in what he's saying with regards to what they were thinking about back in 2021. And Ursula, she is on record saying that she went to DC in October and November of 2021, and she sat down with the Biden White House and they coordinated their sanctions policy in anticipation. This is what Ursula says, in anticipation of something happening with Russia. So they had everything planned out with the sanctions between the US and the EU in anticipation of something happening with Russia. And then you have Kaja Kallas on record saying many times, multiple times, she has stated that Russia needs to be broken apart. It needs to be balkanized and broken apart into 6 or 7 different pieces. Actually, the European Union holds conferences in Brussels about the breaking up of Russia into 6 or 7 different countries. They've even given the countries names. So all of this stuff is on record. So I think that's what's going on with this Rutte statement. Anyway, Rutte also admitted that Russia outproduces all of NATO when it comes to ammo. He said that Russia will be able to challenge NATO in 5 to 7 years, and they're producing 3 times more ammo in 3 months than all of NATO in a year. Another admission from the collective West that Russia outproduces the entirety of the collective West. That means Europe, the United States, Canada, all of the collective West. Russia outproduces them in ammunition and everything, in missiles, ammunition, you name it. Russia outproduces them when it comes to military hardware and weapons. And it was for 4 years. It was 4 years that the NATO CEO, whether it was Stoltenberg or Rutte, when he was prime minister of the Netherlands and then became the NATO CEO, they were all telling us that Russia is a gas station masquerading as a country. It makes nothing. It produces nothing. Its economy will collapse once we introduce the sanctions. Tatters, washing machine chips to power up their tanks and their airplanes, and they're using shovels. That's what they were telling us for 4 years. They were telling us that any day now, Russia is going to run out of weapons. Any day now, Russia is running out of missiles. This is the last missile fired by Russia. They were telling us how many stories in the collective West were saying this is the last Russian missile that has been fired. Russia is 1 week away from running out of weapons. Russia is going to run out of weapons by Tuesday. Russia's going to run out of weapons in 6 hours. Constant stories about how Russia is running out of weapons. And now Russia is producing more than all of NATO. In 3 months, Russia outproduces all of the collective West. What changed, Mark Rutte? Please explain. But to the journalist, the interviewer of this podcast, she didn't follow up. She didn't ask any tough questions of Mark Rutte. Anyway, what did Medvedev have to say about this Rutte interview? This is coming from Medvedev, so it's going to be hard. It may be a little bit insulting. It may be a little bit insulting, but it's coming from Medvedev. So here we go. Here is what he posted. SG, Secretary General Rutte, has clearly gorged on too many of the magic mushrooms beloved by the Dutch. He sees collusion between China and Russia over Taiwan, and then a Russian attack on Europe. But he's right about one thing. He should learn Russian. It might come in handy in a Siberian camp. That is Medvedev's response to Rutte's New York Times interview. So speaking of NATO, the defensive alliance, right? That's what they always say. We're just a defensive alliance, really. Just a defensive alliance that's now focused on China. That's the next grift of NATO, by the way. The next grift after Project Ukraine, which NATO understands they are losing and they have lost. They're now shifting gears towards shifting narratives towards spending more so NATO can take on Russia and take on China in 5 to 7 years, right? So that's how they're going to keep the money grift going. Now we don't need to talk about money to Project Ukraine. Forget about money to Project Ukraine. What it's really about is NATO member states putting more money in the NATO slush fund, because sooner or later we're going to fight Russia and we're going to fight China. And who knows, maybe Xi Jinping will call Putin and he will tell Putin to attack NATO in order for China to attack Taiwan. So we need money and we need weapons to prepare for what's coming with China and with with Russia. Anyway, all right. NATO, we were saying NATO. Speaking of NATO, NATO and Ukraine, they launched another attack, Storm Shadow missiles. So we're also talking about the UK to try and hit the Kerch bridge, the Crimea bridge. And this attack failed, but they did send Storm Shadow missiles to try and bring down the bridge. Ukraine is obsessed with bringing down this bridge. The UK is obsessed with bringing down this bridge, and NATO is obsessed with bringing down the Kerch bridge, which is civilian infrastructure, by the way. Everyone knows, everyone has accepted around the world that the Kerch bridge is not military infrastructure. It is not used to transport weapons. Russia transports weapons and its supply chain, its supply lines over the land bridge and in various other ways via rail. Whatever, they do not use the Kerch bridge for this. So it is civilian infrastructure, civilian traffic, which is crossing the Kerch Bridge, but it doesn't matter for NATO, for the UK, for Ukraine. They want to bring down this civilian infrastructure. And so once again, Storm Shadow missiles were used to try and knock out the Kerch Bridge. They once again failed, but they are still trying. And Ukraine also launched about 120 drones into the Russian Federation. The Russian Ministry of Defense claims that all the drones were taken down, but the drones did hit as they were falling, as they were brought down. They did manage to hit some apartment buildings and some residential areas, though I believe the Russian Ministry of Defense said that there were no casualties in this drone attack into Russia. Many areas and cities of Russia were targeted by the Ukraine drones. The Russian military, they hammered Kharkiv yesterday. They hammered Kharkiv really hard with missiles and with drones, and they also hit more air bases in Ukraine and areas around an air base. There were reports saying that Russia was targeting air bases, but I'm also reading other reports saying that they were actually targeting military facilities close to airfields in Ukraine. So let's shift gears. It's so hot, but we should walk. We should walk even though it's really hot and I'm sweating, but it's good to walk around beautiful Belgrade and this beautiful Belgrade Park. So I could show you a bit of the beauty that is Belgrade. So let's talk about the ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas. Trump is talking up this ceasefire deal. I believe Trump said that this is going to be a 60-day ceasefire deal that he's talking up. And according to various reports, we are very close to a deal, if you believe that Trump really does want a ceasefire in Gaza. If you believe that, the reports are that we're close to some sort of an agreement. The initial plan, from what I understand, that was floated out to Israel and Hamas. The initial deal, Israel was positive on it. Hamas was also positive. But I read that Hamas made some changes, minor changes I read, to the plan, or suggestions. I think I read that Hamas made suggestions and some modifications to the plan, and they gave it to Qatar and Egypt, and then they presented it to the United States and Israel. And then we got a post on X from the Prime Minister's office saying that that Israel is now not in favor of the deal after the modifications or the suggestions of Hamas. And that's where we are. And Netanyahu is going to travel to the United States on Monday to meet with Trump. But the Prime Minister's office in Israel said that they're now turning down the ceasefire deal, or they're not in favor of the ceasefire deal. I'll read you the post actually from the Prime Minister's Office of Israel, just so I'm accurate. But let me get under this tree. But Israel is going to send their delegation to Qatar to continue to negotiate this deal. Here's the post from the Prime Minister's Office of Israel. The changes that Hamas is seeking to make in the Qatari proposal were conveyed to us last night and are unacceptable to Israel. But then further down on X, they say the negotiating team will leave tomorrow, Sunday, for the talks in Qatar. So that's where we are with the 6-day ceasefire deal. My thinking on this is that everything's going to depend not on what's going to be negotiated in Qatar. I don't think that's what this is all about. Everything's going to depend on the meeting between Netanyahu and Trump. We'll see if Trump is really looking for a ceasefire in in Gaza, if he really wants a ceasefire, or if this is just theater and Netanyahu is going to travel to DC, meet with Trump, and the war continues. The horrific war will continue in Gaza. So we'll find out on Monday exactly what is going on, if the Trump administration really is going for a ceasefire, or if they're just buying time. So the European Union, they are proposing sanctions on Israel. I've actually filmed here before. 3 years ago, I filmed here. We were just children to the little ones killed in the NATO aggression. 1999. So what's going on with the EU and sanctions on Israel? Look, Euroactive, which is very close to the EU, to the European Commission, they put out an article saying that the EU is going to place sanctions on Israel, but that's not what's really going on. What's going on is that the European Union, they are going to propose various sanctions towards Israel. And on July 15th, the European Parliament, the Commission, the Council, they'll take a look at these proposals, and then they will see if they're going to move forward with these proposals. So it's not the European Union actually moving towards placing sanctions against Israel. We're at the proposal stage of things. They're going to propose certain things for sanctioning Israel. For example, pausing the EU-Israeli trade agreement, something like that, or perhaps putting some Israeli military officials on a sanctions list. These are the proposals that they're going to make, and then the European Union, in time, over time, they're going to decide if they're going to actually implement these sanctions proposals. So that's what's going on there. And let's now talk about Tucker Carlson, who is going to be interviewing the Iranian President, Peshkian. Good job, Tucker. Good job. That interview should be up either today or tomorrow. Tucker said on social media that his team is now editing the video. He said that American citizens, as they are attacking Iran and possibly going to war with Iran, possibly going into some sort of a war with Iran, that American citizens absolutely have the right to hear from Iran, to know what's going on, and to hear from the Iranian president his thoughts, what he's saying about a possible conflict, another conflict with the United States. So Tucker's right. American citizens absolutely have the right to hear from a country, from the leader of a country that they could possibly be at war with again. So good on Tucker for scoring this interview with Peshkian. It's not going to be a face-to-face interview. I don't think Tucker's going to be in Tehran. It's going to be via video, but that still should be a very interesting interview from Tucker Carlson. Musk is creating the America's Party. It is official. By a factor of 2 to 1, you want a new political party and you shall have it. When it comes to bankrupting our country with waste and graft, we live in a one-party system, not a democracy. Today, the America Party is formed to give you back your freedom. This post from Ryan Dawson is really smart. Dear Elon Musk, please primary Lindsey Graham. Signed, the entire sane world. That's a good post. Musk's plan to create a second party in the United States. So now you have the uniparty, right? You have the uniparty, Democrats and Republicans. So Musk wants to create a second party, and it's going to be focused on spending, because that's why Musk has decided to create a second party, because of the BBB and the out of control spending and debt. It's also going to be focused on technology and AI and stuff like that. Anyway, the plan that Musk is putting forward is actually very clever. It's a very smart plan. Musk is not looking to be the number one party yet. He's not looking to create a big party that's going to rival the Democrats or the Republicans. He's not looking to win 30 seats or anything like that, or make a huge impact in the Senate or in Congress by trying to win majorities or anything along those lines, which would be extremely difficult, if not impossible, at least in the short to medium term. Maybe in the very, very, very long term, something like that could happen. But his strategy is quite clever, quite smart. His goal is to just win a couple of seats in the Senate and a couple of seats in the House, enough seats so that the America's party can be the kingmaker, right? So whenever policy comes up, it will be America's party that is the swing vote that decides one direction or the other direction, which is the smart way to do it. You don't have to be the biggest party. You don't have to be the most powerful party. You just have to be in a position where your votes are needed in order for something to pass, whether it's one vote or two votes or three votes. If they need your votes in order to get something through, then you've got power. And that's his strategy, and that's the correct strategy. It reminds me of the Putin story. You guys remember the Putin story? I think it was with Biden. It was either with Biden or Obama, but let's just say Biden. And the story goes like this. Putin was sitting with Biden, or Biden visited Moscow. And Biden was, of course, very angry and aggressive with Putin. Of course he was. But Biden told Putin, "You're no longer a superpower. So you're going to do whatever we tell you. You guys are no longer a big, strong superpower. We're the superpower now." And Putin told Biden, he said, "Maybe we're not the big superpower any longer, but we're a big enough power in that we can decide who is going to be the superpower." That's what Elon Musk is trying to do. They're going to be the king makers, not the king, the king makers. And Russia did decide, right? Russia did decide, and they said, you know what? Or actually the collective West decided for Russia by going after Russia, trying to balkanize Russia, trying to regime change Russia, placing sanctions on Russia. There was no choice for Russia. And they decided that the next big superpower is going to be China, right? So anyway, that's what they say Putin told Biden back in like 2000 and I don't even know, like 2012 or 13, I want to say. I think right before the Maidan was launched. Anyway, let's move on. What else do I have on the agenda for the day? Or should I get to some clown world? Some clown worlds. Let's see here. Yeah, we can get to some clown worlds. Oh, no. Let's not get to some clown worlds. We got the BRICS Summit, the 17th BRICS Summit, taking place in Brazil. Yes, taking place in Brazil, but Putin's not going to be there. Lavrov, I believe, is going to be there instead, but Putin is going to attend via video link. He's not going there because of the ICC. And for the first time, Xi Jinping is not going to be at a BRICS summit. And a lot of people are saying this is trouble for BRICS because Xi Jinping always goes to the BRICS summit. So this is bad news for BRICS, but it's not. It's not bad news for BRICS. This is actually very easy to explain. Xi Jinping is going to stay in China. He has a lot of domestic issues that he has to take care of. But he has met with Lula in the last 6 months. I believe he has met with Lula twice. Very high-level meetings between China and Brazil, Xi Jinping and Lula. And this has just been in 6 months, and they've signed all kinds of deals and agreements. And there's no need for him to go to Brazil. He can send his number two. He can handle everything that needs to be discussed during the BRICS Summit. Xi Jinping does not have to be there. And he's done all of his business with Lula over the past 6 months. 2 very high-level meetings with the Brazilian leader. I believe Lula went to China. And I think Lula went to China after the May 9th Victory Day. And then they had another meeting as well. And they pretty much signed whatever they needed to sign. And they agreed on whatever China and Brazil needed to agree on. And they discussed BRICS and all of those things. So Xi Jinping is completely dialed in. There was no reason for him to go to Brazil. And his number two can handle everything. Lavrov, he has been handling everything for Russia as well. When they need Lavrov to go to these BRICS meetings, Lavrov goes and there's no problem. Putin will be there via video. So it's really not that big of an issue. Anyway, let's do some clown worlds and we'll wrap up this video update. Lami going to Syria to meet with Bizarro Zelensky Al-Jalani. That's my first clown world. I don't really have any comments on that one. David Lami, International Rules-Based Order. David Lami meeting with the former head of HTS, Al-Nusra, Al-Qaeda, $10 million bounty on his head just last week, Al-Jalani. But now he's what's his name? Al-Shara. Now he's the president of Syria. So all is good, right? He cut his hair, he put on a suit, and now he is president of Syria. So Lami is meeting with him, and they signed all kinds of deals between the UK and Al-Jalani, Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra, former leader, president of Syria. So that's my first clown world. David Lami, everybody. And what else? What else do I have as a clown world? How about this story? The Green Party in Germany, they are very upset with BlackRock Merz because BlackRock Merz is not spending enough on Project Ukraine. BlackRock Merz is committing Germany to 7.5 billion to 8.3 billion to hand over to the Green Goblin. And the Green Party in Germany, they say this is not enough, and they want BlackRock Merz to commit to 8.5 billion to Ukraine annually up until 2029. They want Germany to pay 8.5 billion at a minimum to Ukraine up until 2029. Every year, 8.5 billion at a minimum to go to Ukraine. What is it with the Green Party and Project Ukraine? There's something going on. I don't think this has been properly investigated, but there's some sort of connection. There's something going on between the Green Party and Project Ukraine because, man, they are obsessed with Project Ukraine in a very weird, unhealthy way. The Green Party of Germany. Is it the whole green thing? I don't know. I don't know what's going on. But anyway, they're upset with BlackRock Merz. Spend more on Project Ukraine every year up until 2029. That's the video, everybody. TheDurant.locals.com. We are on X. We are on Rumble. We are all over the place. Give a like, give a share to this video. I will see everybody tomorrow. Take care.